Coming up next, Book TV presents Afterwards, an hour-long program where we invite guest hosts to interview authors. This week, Azar Nafisi, author of Reading Lolita in Tehran, talks about her new book, Things I've Been Silent About, Memories, a more personal story of her life in Iran. In this memoir, the former University of Tehran literature professor brings her readers into her childhood and reveals the family dynamics that shaped her choices in life and her world perspective. She discusses her book with Trita Parsi, president of the National Iranian American Council.
Welcome to Book TV. My name is Trita Parsi, and we're joined today by Professor Azar Nafisi, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and author of a new book called Things That I've Been Silent About. Professor Nafisi, or Azar if I may,
Azar.
Let me jump right into it. This is a book that is very different from your previous book, Reading Lolita in Tehran. It is a book in which politics is constantly there in the background. But more than anything else, it's about your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your father. It's about a very tumultuous relationship within your family. It's about adultery. It's about betrayal. It's about love and the absence of love. And perhaps a little bit about forgiveness as well. Let me read a very interesting passage in the very beginning of the book. You say, most men cheat on their wives to have mistresses. My father cheated on my mother to have a happy family life. I felt sorry for him, and in one sense, I took it upon myself to fill the empty spaces in his life. This is very interesting. Tell us a little bit more about your father and the relationship that he had with your mother, about your relationship with your mother, and why, instead of feeling anger perhaps, more than anything else, you took it upon yourself to fill in the empty spaces of his life.
Well, it's a wonderful question, but so many dimensions to it. Thank you, Trita, for this conversation. Well, you know, one of the things that happened to me, I wasn't going to write this book. I was going to write a book called Republic of Imagination. My publisher would tell you that. And then when my mother died, and a year later my father died, I felt that there was this unfinished conversation with them that I needed to, you know, somehow finish now after they're gone, the void that their absence created. And that was when the idea came to me. Now, you asked about the relationship between my mother and my father. I had many problems with my mother, and I always thought all her life, while she was alive, I thought that the root of our problems was my mother. It was only after she died that I realized we were all complicit somehow in the creation of this relationship. She was a wonderful woman in many ways, a very intelligent woman, and at the same time a woman whose potentials had constantly been left unrealized. A friend of hers calls women like herself and my mother another intelligent woman gone to waste. And because she had lost her own mother when she was very young, she was very frozen in the past. And when she met my father, she already had shut herself towards her life in the presence. She had been married very young to a man of whom she idolized.
But who betrayed her, who did not reveal his illness until the night of their marriage.
Yes, that is the whole point. One aspect of this book is about betrayals and how we react to them or create these defense mechanisms against them. He was apparently a very charming and wonderful man, and at the time he was the son of the prime minister, so, you know, all the Prince Charming-like attributes. But in essence, as you mentioned, he betrays her because he marries her without telling her that he was suffering from a fatal disease. And the doctors had told his family he's going to die very soon, so let him do what he wants. And rather than, you know, confronting this betrayal and moving on, she remained frozen in it. She kept expecting my father to fill in the gaps that the first husband had left. So this was a marriage that started more with an illusion than the reality of their situation. You know.
But she must have been receptive to that illusion. It could not have just started with that night at that marriage in which it's revealed to her that all of this is an illusion.
No, no, you're right. It didn't start. Of course, we always create our own lives. The circumstances are partly responsible, but what we make of them is also important. The only memory my mother had of her own mother was the night her mother died. And when I was writing this book, I felt how horrible it must be that the closest person to you, you only remember her lifeless body, because my mother was so young. And she had this proverbial stepmother. I keep telling my friends, you know, Cinderella and Snow White are really right. I mean, they are rooted in reality if they are not reality itself. And so she started with her life with lack, with absences. She constantly felt that, for example, her mother's wealth and love was taken away from her. And although she loved her step-siblings, she also resented the way that she was treated like a poor relative, while they were given all, you know, everything that they wanted. So her life begins with a resentment and with a bitterness. And part of this book is how dangerous it becomes when we remain victims, when we don't try, we define ourselves but what has deprived us of certain things, rather than by what we are, who we want to be. You know, so.
And in this specific case, her resentment, her anger, you became the subject of it. Your husband, your father became the subject of it.
Yes, I was the firstborn and the daughter, so the girl. And so she had very contradictory feelings towards me. On one hand, she wanted me to be everything that she wasn't. The attention she didn't get in her childhood, she would force on me, you know. I was, from early childhood, I could not eat sweets. I had to drink carrot juice and my orange juice. I had to be accomplished in every way. And obviously, I disappointed her. I could never be accomplished in everything that she wanted me to be. And I think paradoxically, she resented me because I had a mother and she didn't. So I was a subject of an intense jealousy, not just because I was very close to my father, which I was. I was very much drawn to him. We were both victims here. But also, I had a mother who cared, who was there despite all the difficulties, and she never had it. And this relationship became very intrusive.
Why do you think it was so difficult for her to step out of herself for a second and see what you just described right now and try to appreciate the fact that she could break that cycle? Instead of bringing that pain on to the next generation, she could break it.
You know, this is a very good question. It's the million-dollar question you're asking. And one of the amazing things since I've written this book, I keep encountering, even some of the people who have been interviewing me, in the middle of it, they say to me, you know, we had the same problem. And it seems to be the problem of people who, I think that there is a sense of self lacking here, rather than, if you look at yourself as an individual who has certain potentials, you can always, as you mentioned, confront the situation and come out of it. But if you see your life defined by someone else, if you constantly look at yourself as others see and define you, you can become very dangerous to yourself and therefore to others. My mother never forgot what she was deprived of. She never forgot that it was her stepmother who was defining her life. And so at every juncture, she missed the chance to become her own woman. And therefore, she expected us to become her mirrors. And, you know, it's like, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And we always had to tell her that, no, you are the fairest. You are the best, you know? And that doesn't happen in real life.
And paradoxically, you're describing a weakness there. But paradoxically, she was a very strong woman.
Yes.
She became a member of parliament. Yes. She was known for something that I think perhaps you also admire very much, for her strong positions, her integrity, her refusal to show some flexibility at times.